Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we continue on with our discussion about Shalom Sheila, coming in the last part of the 5th chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilas. And we got up to the point we discussed a lot about the different Shalom Lakshanas or qualities or distinguishing features of different Shalograms and what their names were, and benefits and merits and demerits from worshipping any of them. And we also had an understanding that in general, even if a Shalogram has some supposed defect, it can be worshipped, and that the main thing is that we have faith in worshipping the particular form of the Lord, and that anybody can actually worship any form as long as they have faith and they perform the worship correctly. So now we have a section coming up called Mahatmyam, which is the glories of Shalogram Sheilas. So let's hear some of the glories of Shalogram Sheilas. So we'll go to the text of Hari Bhakti Vilas and see that. So here, starting again from text 363, the Shalogram Mahatmyam, Shalogram Sheila Mahatmyam. I'm not sure where this comes from, but at least the first sloka seems to be just simply written here. Simply by touching the Shalom Sheila, all one's sinful reactions accumulated since millions of lifetimes are destroyed. Amazing. What then can be said for those who worship the Shalom Sheila? So just by touching a Shalom Sheila, you get all your sins destroyed. What to speak of actually worshiping them? We're going to learn how to worship different deities, and specifically Shalom Sheila is being mentioned here. So it says, those persons who worship the Shalom Sheila, they certainly attain Lord Hari's association, meaning in Goloka or in Vaikuntha, right? They attain the Lord's association. Now, in the Magha Mahatmyam, which is the glories of the month of Magh, which comes in the beginning of the year, right? January, February, or December, January. Let's see. I'm not sure exactly. In the Padma Purana, there's some statements made which are appropriate to this. O Brahma, one who worships Sri Hari every day in his favorite form as the Shalom Sheila. So here it's interesting. Let's have a look at the Sanskrit here. Pujya Dharim Chakre. I'm not exactly sure what he means by what he's talking about favorite form here. But anyway, if it's a favorite form of Lord Hari, that's nice. Favorite form as a Shalom Sheila daily obtains the result of performing 1,000 Rajasuya sacrifices. Wow. These are big Vedic sacrifices and performing 1,000 of them. So he's just trying to say, the worshipping Shalom definitely gives great benefit here. So text 365, the same Supreme Lord who is addressed in the Vedanta as the infallible absolute truth, right? Devoid of material qualities, the word nirgunam is used here. And of course, Vaishnavas, we understand nirgunam doesn't mean no qualities, but it means, or without qualities, but it means actually with qualities, but those qualities are auspicious qualities, right? So no, not material, but purely spiritual qualities. Bestows mercy on those who worship him as the Shalom Sheila. Text 366. As fire hidden within two sticks becomes manifest when they are rubbed together, Sri Hari manifests himself in the Shalom Sheila. Okay, so this is an allusion in this verse to the fire drill method of the method of making fire for a sacrifice using the Arni Manta, which is an Indian fire drill. So it's two pieces of wood, one piece on top, which is like a press, which is pressed down on the bottom piece, and some people are using a rope wrapped around the vertical piece to churn quickly the wood, to rub the wood quickly against the other piece of wood, which actually creates heat and ultimately creates friction and creates fire, which is a typical way of making a type of fire called balagni or baby agni or infant agni. When we want to make that type of fire, if we're doing a fire sacrifice, we rub the sticks together, called the Arni Manta. So here he's saying that just like there is there is intrinsic or esoteric fire. The fire is there within the wood, and all we have to do is rub it, and we see the fire manifest between the two sticks of wood. Similarly, Lord Hari, the Supreme Lord, is within the Shalagram Shila. He's manifesting in the Shalagram Shila, and when we worship him in the Shalagram Shila, he will manifest his mercy upon us. He'll give us his blessing. So text 367, O Vaishya, if even unqualified people who are unqualified, who are fond of sinful activities, worship the Shalagram Shila, they can be spared from traversing the path to the abode of Yamaraj. What if I suggested this today? What if I said this? Oh, the Shastra says, even if I give a Shalagram and the person worships the Shalagram, right? Even if they're not qualified, or even if they're sinful, right? They're fond of sinful activities, still they're going to achieve benefit from it, and they're not going to go to hell and see Yamaraj. Okay. So text 368, 369. Lord Narayana does not feel as satisfied in the association of Lakshmi or in his own abode as he feels when he is manifest in the Shalagram Shila. So the Lord is in Vaikuntha or Goloka. He is in the company of Lakshmi or Radha, like that. He is self-satisfied, but he feels better manifesting in the Shalagram Shila. He obtains more satisfaction by being in the Shalagram Shila. That's what it's saying. One who worships Lord Sri Hari as a Shalagram Shila obtains the result of performing an Agnihotra sacrifice. And Agnihotra is also, again, is a Vedic sacrifice, which has to be done morning and evening. It's a very short sacrifice, but it's still a Vedic ceremony. It's quite difficult, right? And giving away the entire earth in charity. So anybody who worships Shalagram, he is considered to have got the benefit of performing the Agnihotra sacrifice and giving the whole world as charity. Text 370 to 371. If anyone, even he may be the lowest amongst mankind, who is fully under the control of lust, anger, and greed, he's fully under their control. If he dedicates himself to worshiping the Shalagram Shila, he attains the supreme abode of Sri Hari. A person who always worships Sri Govinda in the Shalagram Shila becomes qualified to reside in the planets of the demigods until the final dissolution of the universe. So he goes to heaven until the whole universe is dissolved, for as long as and then afterwards he can go to the supreme abode of Sri Hari. So amazing result. So text 372 to 374. It's described, O Vaishya, even without visiting holy places, giving charity, performing austerities, and accumulating knowledge. These are methods which are given in the scriptures for advancing in spiritual life. Human beings can become eligible for liberation simply by worshiping the Shalagram Shila with love and devotion. So you don't need to go on parikrama. You don't need to go visit all the holy places. You don't even need to give any charity. You don't have to perform any austerities, no fasting, no austerities, no giving up of things that are normally to be given up when you do sadhana. Accumulating knowledge, no study of the scriptures, nothing like that. All you have to do is worship the Shalagram Shila with love and devotion, and you become eligible for liberation. If the most sinful people worship Lord Achyuta in his form as Shalagram Shila, then they become relieved from being born amongst animals, insects, and in other hellish conditions, as well as from suffering within the womb. So that means they never have to take birth again. I assure you, in animal species or in human species, in any species, I assure you that if a person who has been initiated, that's interesting, we'll look at the Sanskrit in a minute, and thus has received a bona fide mantra, worships me with offerings in my form of Shalagram Shila, he will be transferred to the supreme abode. I want to have a look and see what it says actually here. It does say that. See, Diksha is mentioned. Diksha Vidana, mantra jnanas. If he has got Diksha. But see, remember, if we remember in the second to last, which talks about Diksha, there was also another statement there that without Diksha, you cannot be certain of not taking birth again in either as a human being or even as an animal. Maybe one falls down even to an animal form of life if one doesn't take Vaishnava initiation. So here again, it's being emphasized that the person who's worshipping Shalagram should be initiated. Okay. But even then, there are these glorifications of people who are not even qualified worshipping and having some good result. So in any case, we do accept this, that it's got it there. It definitely says one should get initiated, one should get a bona fide mantra in order to worship the Shalom Sheila properly. Text 375 to 377. In this age of Kali, oh, this is nice. In this age of Kali, anyone who worships the Shalom Sheila with devotion, while offering various foods, incense, ghee lamps, flowers, sandalwood paste, prayers accompanied by singing, playing of musical instruments, resides with the Lord in great happiness. By simply worshipping the Shalom Sheila, he obtains the result of worshipping 10 million Shiva lingas. Okay. So for those people who are looking, maybe those people who are confused and they think, well, should I worship the Shiva lingam or should I worship the Shalagram? This is answering the question. Definitely you'll get more benefit from worshiping the Shalagram. Of course, we might find in some of these Rajasic and Tamasic Puranas, there might be some quotes saying it's better to worship the Shiva lingam. But anyway, here he's quoting specifically these sattvic instructions that say that worship of Shalagram is greater than 10 million times greater than worshiping Shiva lingam. Text 378. Demigods or devatas, asuras, yakshas, and the entire 14 worlds are present where Lord Keshava in the form of Shalom Sheila is worshipped. So not only you get great benefit from worshiping the Lord in the form of Shalagram, but just having a Shalagram, right, and worshiping that Shalagram, there are all these other living beings who come and they appreciate that, and they're around that, like the demigods and yakshas. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure whether we want the asuras to come and witness our puja of Shalagram, but anyway, it's mentioned there. Deva, asura, yaksha. Okay. Text 379. A person who performs the Shraddha ceremony to the forefathers by worshipping the Shalom Sheila ensures that his forefathers joyfully live in the planet of the demigods for 100 kalpas. Okay, so actually here the planet of, I don't know about the planet of the demigods, but there's a place called Pitri Loka where if you perform the particular ceremonies after a person's death, that person can go there and reside there with two other members of his ancestors, two other generations of his ancestors. So we have 3 generations of ancestors living there. When you go to that place, or when your parents go to that place, then their great grandparents have to leave there. So 3 generations of people can stay there at one time, and they subsist on the tarpanas and the different shraddhas that are offered by their descendants, and they enjoy in that place, right? So he's saying that if you worship Shalagram, right, if you perform a shraddha ceremony and you also include the worship of Shalagram, now normally what Vaishnavas do when they do the shraddha ceremony, instead of making simply offerings of pinda or rice balls to the ancestors, they offer, first of all, they offer the rice balls or the pinda to Shalagram or to a deity of Lord Vishnu, so that it's Vishnu prasadam which they offer to the forefathers. So the ancestors or forefathers in Pitri Loka will enjoy if we give them Vishnu prasadam or Krishna prasadam, and here it said that we should include the worship of Shalom Sheila in the Shraddha ceremony that we do for the ancestors. So the different types of Shraddhas, and we won't go into that now, but there's many different types of Shraddhas, and there's also tarpanas and different things that people have to do many times a year. In fact, the Shastra says you're supposed to be doing tarpana 96 times a year, but most people don't do 96 times. So there are different instructions, and that all has to do with a different topic. So let's not get into it. But worshiping the Shalom Sheila as part of the Shraddha ceremony is definitely a good thing to do according to Shastra. So text 380, an area of 24 miles, right? I'm not sure exactly what it says here about. Here it says Yojana Traya, Yojana Trayam. Yojana Trayam means 3 yojanas. Normally the word yojana means 8 miles, is equal to 8 miles. I don't know how much that is in kilometers, but we can, I'm not exactly sure. We could go into all the different types of weights and measures that are used in the Vedic civilization, but a yojana here is being translated as being 8 miles. So 3 yojanas around the place where a Shalom Sheila is worshipped is considered to be a holy tirtha, a holy place. So for 24 miles around. And also, as such, all pious activities, punya karmas, including giving charity, chanting mantras, or performance of fire sacrifices that are executed in this area yield 10 million times the greater results. So when you're doing a festival in your temple, and your temple has the Shalom Sheilas there, right? That means that all of the chanting of the mantras there, all of the performance of fire sacrifices there, all of the giving of charity or doing of any pious punya karmas, any ceremonies, rituals, because the deity and because the Shalom Sheila is present, it gives 10 million times greater result than if you went some other place where there is no temple, there is no deity, and you did those same religious festivals and religious ceremonies, you wouldn't get as much result. So doing these ceremonies in the presence of Shalom Sheila or the deity in the temple gives much greater results. Text 381, if a fallen person who was born of the Kikata Desha, in Kikata Desha, right? Maybe we should look up what Kikata Desha is, gives up his material body within 2 miles of the place, and I'm not sure if krosha, it says here, krosha matram, 1 krosha. So I guess a krosha is 2 miles, maybe a quarter of a yojan is a krosha. We have to look that up. Right? Then where the Shalom Sheila is being worshipped, he attains Vaikuntha Loka or the spiritual sky. So even if people die close to the temple where the Shalagram and the deity is being worshipped, they attain Vaikuntha just by dying in the vicinity. So for instance, in India, we have the Agraharam, we have the Brahmin neighborhood, which is just around the temple. In Sri Rangam, there are 2 streets around the Sri Ranganatha temple, which are inhabited only by Brahmins. And so the people who live there are very devoted to the deity in the temple, and they live very close to the temple. In the Vedic civilization, especially in the medieval times in the caste system, the people who were of lower caste, they had to live further away from the temple. And in some cases, if they were untouchables, they were not allowed to enter the temple. So we know this from Haridas Thakur and the Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were considered to be fallen Brahmins also. So they were Dvija Bandhus, so they were not allowed to enter the temple even. And then later on, what happened was Mahatma Gandhi introduced some idea in India to accept the Harijanas, the Dalits, the lower caste or untouchable people, to be able to also go into temples. So previously to that, they couldn't go into a temple. So all you could do if you were very low caste or if you're a foreigner in those days was you could see the outside of the temple. So that's why in South India they have a lot of the deities on the gopurams and the vimanam of the temple, so that the low caste people who couldn't actually enter the temple because they're considered impure, ritualistically impure, they could look and they could bow down and they could see the deity on the outside. As Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, when they went to see Jagannath temple, they couldn't go inside, so they would just see the chakra on the temple top and the flag and of the Lord, and they would offer their obeisances and meditate upon the Lord. So here it's saying, so even if fallen people, and let's see what this Kikata Desh is. Kikata Desh. And even if they in the vicinity of the temple, they die. Okay, so so according to Monica Williams' dictionary, The Kikatas are the name of a people not belonging to the Aryan race. The Aryan race. So, okay, so we have to understand what the word Aryan means. Of course, in recent history, in the last century or so, and especially many people have come to associate the word Aryan with people who are Caucasians, or whose ancestors are said by scientists to come from the Caucasus regions of southern Russia or Eastern Europe, like that. And who have white skin. So normally when we talk about Caucasians, we're talking about people who have light skinned people. So in India, we have all sorts of different people according to skin color, and we have the people in the East they're more like the Asian type of person, and the people in the West are more like the Western European type of person. The people in the South are more like the Dravidian type of, or even like the Australasian type of person. So we have these differences, slight differences in race amongst different human beings, because there are 8,400,000 different species of life, and out of that, I believe 400,000 human beings. So there are different types of human beings, and so what it's saying here is that there are Aryans and non-Aryans. But so Aryan doesn't just mean a certain race of person or a certain skin color. What it actually means, what it should be taken to mean, is as a certain culture. So the people who are the real Aryans are the people who are worshiping the Lord, who are worshiping Lord Vishnu, right? Or perhaps worshiping other devatas, but they're following the Vedic civilization. They're following the Vedas, and these people are Aryans, considered Aryans. Okay, so we have to understand there are different people who will interpret Aryan in different ways. So we're not suggesting in this, we're not suggesting that these people who are born in Kikata Desh, right, that they cannot become Vaishnavas. Yes, they can become Vaishnavas. So sometimes we read in the scriptures that people who are born in different countries are considered to be not Aryan. From a materialistic point of view of skin color or race, we can say people born in other countries or born in they normally have different races or whatever it is like that. Of course, now with immigration all over the place, you have people of Indian, like the Indian race of people that are being born in other places, and you have also people who are naturally, their races are coming from other parts of the world, being born also in India. So just to be born in a particular country doesn't mean that you are belonging to a specific race. So here we shouldn't think that. We should understand that the idea being put forward here is that maybe you were born in a place or into a family or into a culture which is not understood to be really spiritual according to the Vedic Shastras. Even then, if you die near to a temple where there's a Shalom Sheila or a house, a place where there's a Shalom Sheila or a deity of the Lord, you will attain Vaikuntha. So that's the idea. Very, very, very interesting idea here. But we shouldn't take it. We should understand the meaning when they say born in a particular place. It's not actually that being born in the place is making the person material, is making the person low class or not Aryan. It's just that in that place, most of the people probably are not following Vedic civilization or Vaishnavism. So that's why they say that in those days. So we don't know now exactly where this Kikata Desh, maybe it's part of India even. We don't know. So we have to do more research to find out exactly where that place is. Anyhow, so 382, anyone who donates an auspicious Shalom Sheila bearing the marks of chakra obtains the result of giving in charity the entire earth, along with its mountains, forests, and gardens. Very nice. So now there's a conversation between Shiva and Kartikeya. Kartikeya is one of Shiva's sons. The other one is Ganesh. And he's also called Shanmukha, or six-faced, or also called Kartikeya, Skanda, Subramanya, Murugan in Tamil. And there's a Kartik Mahatmyam, a Mahatmyam about the month of Kartik, which comes in October, November, right, in the Skanda Purana. So a conversation between Kartikeya and Lord Shiva, his father. O Kartikeya, I always reside along with the three worlds of moving and living beings in Shalagram Sheila. Now, interesting. Because when I read this, it's I mean, Shiva is saying, when Shiva is saying, he says, he seems to be saying, this translation makes it sound like Shiva is saying he resides in the Shalagram Sheila. But I think if we read this in context, if we look at we go to the Skanda Purana and find the context here, he's saying that Vishnu resides within the Shalagram Sheila, because I would be very surprised, we have to look this up, I would be very surprised if Shiva says, I also reside in the Shalagram Sheila, because normally Shalagram Sheilas are only considered to be Vishnu. Okay, so sometimes you find these people in India and they come to you and they go, oh, this is a Shalagram Sheila, this is a Ganesh Sheila, this is a Shiva Sheila. You know, normally you don't hear people say that. Normally it's people only who are a little bit ignorant. They don't realize that all the Shalagams are all deities of Vishnu. Now, another understanding of this could be, right, that that just as we had a Sheila that perhaps that could be Brahma, Chaturmukha. Remember, we had this idea that there was a Chaturmukha Sheila, and Chaturmukha means four-faced, right? It means Lord Brahma usually. And Lord Brahma is a guna avatar of the mode of passion, or Rajaguna avatar, and he does the secondary creation in this world. So similarly, we have the Tamaguna avatar, Lord Shiva, who does the destruction in this world, and then Lord Vishnu himself does the creation, the maintenance in this world. So creation, maintenance, and destruction are covered by these three gunas, these three modes of nature, and the avatars for them, which is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. But in case Brahma and Shiva, in case there are not qualified living beings, Jiva souls, who can take these posts of creator and of destroyer, Brahma and Shiva, then Lord Vishnu steps in and he takes an incarnation as the Brahma or as the Shiva in a particular universe. So that may be what Shiva is talking about here. Maybe Shiva is saying, I'm also there in the Shalagram. Maybe the Shiva which is talking here is actually an incarnation of Vishnu. So we don't know. So that's just another thought. We can't know. What we need to do is look in Skanda Purana in this place and see what the context is. But normally when I would read something like this, I would think Lord Shiva is instructing Kartikeya about how Vishnu is always manifest in the Shalagram Shiva. Okay, 384. Anyone who sees, offers obeisances to, bathes, or worships the Shalagram Sheila attains the result of performing 10 million fire sacrifices and giving away 10 million cows in charity. That's very straightforward. Text 385. O Brahmana, even if a person who has no devotional love, because before we heard that you should worship the Shalagram Sheila with devotion and love. It's only natural. We should always worship all the deities with devotion and love. But here it's saying, even if a person has no devotion or has no love for the Lord and is full of material desires, if that person worships Shalagram Sheila, he attains liberation of having the same bodily features of the Lord. There are different types of liberation, and one of them is called Swarupya. So Swarupya means you attain a form with four hands, with the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, and Padma, the different weapons of Vishnu, just like Lord Vishnu, and you look almost like Lord Vishnu, except for a few distinguishing marks like the Srivatsa on the chest, which is the abode of Lakshmi. So even a person with no love and devotion. Text 386, by offering obeisances to, remembering, glorifying, or worshipping the Shalagram Sheila, one becomes relieved of all sinful reactions, even if he had killed 10 million living entities. So A person has murdered one person, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, million people. Here, 10 million. Even if he's killed 10 million, we're talking about there are some dictators I won't mention, but there's some dictators in the history of the world who killed millions. Yeah. Even a person like that becomes relieved of all his sinful reactions if he just worships the Shalom Sheila, or just offers obeisances, or remembers or glorifies the Shalom Sheila. So great. So powerful. Text 387, 388. As animals such as a deer living in a forest run out of fear as soon as they see a lion, all of one's sinful reactions flee as soon as one sees the Shalom Sheila. As soon as you just see Shalom Sheila, just see the form of Shalom Sheila, see a picture of a Shalom Sheila, right? By offering, and all your sins just fly away like animals when they see a lion in the forest. So by offering obeisances to the Shalom Sheila after worshipping him with devotion, all of one's sinful reactions are destroyed, just as darkness is dissipated by the rising of the sun. When we offer obeisances to the deity or to Shalom, right, it's just like the sun coming up, and there's light, and there's no more darkness. All of our sins are destroyed. There's this saying, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hayandakara, in Bengali. Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like illusion, or ignorance is like the darkness. When the sun comes up, there's no more ignorance or no more darkness. So text 389 to 391. If a person who is under the spell of either lust or anger worships Shalom Sheila, either with or without devotion, he attains liberation from material bondage. Anyone who discusses topics in relation to Lord Hari in front of the Shalom Sheila will not be disturbed by fear of Yamaraj. So sometimes we see this, what do people do is when they discuss topics about the Lord, many times they are in a temple in front of a Shalom, or in front of the deity, in front of the deity form of the Lord. And this is considered more auspicious than if we just go to some pandal tent somewhere and we hear a great personality or a saint talk from the scriptures or speak from the scriptures. So Prabhupada used to have these pandal programs in India, and whenever he would speak on the scriptures, and thousands of people would come. They'd put up big tents, but they would also have kirtan on the stage. They would have devotees chanting kirtan, the Lord's holy names, and they would also have some deities there and offer worship to the deities. So in the presence of the deity, the Shalom Sheila, in the presence of the Lord's holy name, right? If you speak the scriptures, it's far more effective, and far more beneficial spiritually for people. Nice. In this Kali Yuga, one who worships Shalom Sheila with faith and devotion while singing, offering prayers, playing musical instruments, will reside eternally in the abode of Lord Vishnu. Text 392. Lord Shiva says, if my devotees in this world offer obeisances to the Shalom Sheila, even without devotion, fake it till you make it. Even if you just offer obeisances to the Shalom Sheila, they will no longer have fear of material existence. Text 393. Those who do not offer their obeisances. Okay, so normally what we have two sections here. The first section is all encouraging people to worship and to offer obeisances and to pray to Shalagams and to pray to deities. And the next part will be give us some heavy statements. So if you don't do this, if you don't offer your obeisances, then you're going to be having problems spiritually, etc. So here it's going to say, those who do not offer their obeisances to Lord Vasudeva, being puffed up with the mentality that they are and this is Lord Shiva speaking, my Lord Shiva's devotees, right, are most sinful. You should know for certain that they are not really my devotees. Now, this is a very, very interesting verse and a very good pramana. Learn this verse. If you meet a Shaivite, right, and he says something, you can quote this verse. I think it's maybe from, I'm not sure if it's from Padma Purana or where. We can have a look. It looks like, does it actually say where it's from? Yeah, from Skanda Purana. Okay. So he says, Lord Shiva is saying this, that these people who do not offer obeisances to Vishnu, especially in his form of Shalom Sheila, but any who do not offer obeisances to Lord Vasudeva, meaning it's Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, if they don't offer obeisances, if they think, oh, I'm a Shaivite, I don't need to worship Vishnu, I don't need to offer obeisances to him, and they think that they're a Shaivite, Lord Shiva himself is saying here in Skanda Purana, those people are not my devotees. They're not real Shaivites. If they don't offer obeisances, right, to Lord Vishnu also, they are not my devotees. My real devotees would definitely offer obeisances to Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. Here, Lord Vasudeva, it says here. Very good pramana here from Skanda Purana. Worth memorizing this one if you meet a lot of Shaivites. Okay, my dear son.
But just one question: are the Shaivites accepting Puranas as authority?
Yeah, they should. They should accept Puranas. They should accept Puranas, but maybe they're going to quote. Maybe they're going to quote many things from other things. Like for instance, if we look in Devi Bhagavat Purana, Devi Bhagavat is considered to be a Purana. Maybe it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not a Sattvic Purana. Okay. But I'm not sure if it comes in the 18 Puranas or maybe it's separate. But anyway, it's considered to be a scripture, right? In the Devi Bhagavat. If you read in the Devi Bhagavat, it says, those persons, in there, it says, those persons who brand their bodies with the symbols of Vishnu will go to hell. Mm-hmm. So Shaktites and Shaivites, they may say that. Oh, you people, look, it says in Devi Bhagavat Purana. But see, we can only accept what is in Rajasic and Tamasic Puranas. We can only accept proofs from them that contradict. We can only, that do not contradict. If they have something in their scriptures that says something which doesn't contradict what is said in the Sattvic scriptures, then we can accept it. But if it completely contradicts the Vedas, it contradicts the higher scriptures, the Sattvic scriptures. So therefore we can't accept it. Okay. They accept it because they don't have the same hierarchy of scriptures that we do. They think their stories about Shiva are the greatest stories, and therefore they don't accept it. So whether if you quote this verse 393 to somebody and say this is in Skanda Purana, don't you accept this? You should accept it, right? Many people will accept it, but there may be some very hardcore Shaivites who say no, we have a reason for not accepting this because we think that we have other instructions which we feel are greater. Then you have to say, okay, well, what are those other instructions? What book do they come in? Why do you think that book is a greater pramana than this one? Right? So ultimately, it comes down to quoting and counter-quoting different pramanas from different scriptures. And the person who quotes from the higher scripture. I had this experience. I think I told this experience. I went to Benares. I'm not sure if I told it here. But I went to Benares, and Benares, everybody's a Shaivite in Benares. Everybody worships Shiva in Benares. So I didn't really even want to go there. My wife wanted to go there to take pictures with the river and the ghats and everything. Okay, so I went there, right, with her, and we went to this place. Shiva. It was a Shiva. It was called Shiva Restaurant. So we went to have some, something at the Shiva Restaurant, the pure vegetarian restaurant. When you travel, sometimes you can't always get food everywhere. So anyway, we went to this place. The guy who owned it was a Shaivite. So as soon as he saw that we were wearing Vaishnava tilak, he came up and he said, oh, you're Vaishnavas. He said, but Shiva is supreme. Shiva is supreme, more than Vishnu. And I said, well, that's your opinion. I didn't really want to get into an argument with the guy. I just wanted to, leave. So he wanted to make an argument. So he said, no. He said, I'll prove it to you that Shiva is supreme. He said, when Rama in the Ramayana was in Rameshwaram, right? Then Sita I think he made a lingam, right? And he worshipped the Rameshwaram lingam to get Sita back. He wanted to worship the Rameshwaram lingam. So Rama is Vishnu and Rama worshipped Shiva. So because Rama worshipped Shiva, therefore, Shiva is greater than Rama, obviously, right? You have to accept this because that's there in the Ramayana. like that. I said that is a Leela. That is a pastime when the Lord comes in different forms like Krishna and Rama or whatever, and Narasimha, they perform different pastimes, right? Okay, but yeah, Krishna's a baby. Krishna's a baby doesn't mean that he's not also God, because he appears to be a baby and his mother appears to be scolding him. This is Leela. I told the guy this is Leela. He goes, anyway, he said Shiva is greater than Rama. Like that. I said, okay. I said, so well, what about when Vishnu comes and puts his, as Trivikram and Vaman and Trivikram, puts his foot through the sky, in the sky, and the Ganges comes down and washes the feet of Lord Vishnu, Trivikrama, and the water from the washing the feet of Vishnu comes onto the head of Shiva before it comes to the earth. So your God takes bath in the foot water of my God. My God's foot water goes on the head of your God. So how can Shiva be supreme if he's getting the water from the feet of Vishnu on his head? How can he be supreme like that? And that shut him right up, because I could have got into a whole philosophical argument, but I just said it's very plain to me. If you look in the scriptures, you're here in Benares. The Ganges is the big thing in Benares, is flowing right past. Everything is about the Ganges and Shiva in Benares. So you worship Shiva, and you are on the bank of the Ganges. The Ganges is a great holy river. Nobody in Benares will say the Ganges is not a holy river. What makes it holy is it comes off the feet of Vishnu. It's Vishnu's foot water. But before it comes to the earth, it goes on the head of Shiva. So everyone in Benares accepts this story. So if everybody accepts this story, that means that Vishnu is greater than Shiva, because his foot water is going on the head of Shiva. He just told him that. No argument. He couldn't argue at all, right? I didn't need to get into philosophy and talk about the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas and the Upanishads. I didn't need to. I just said, here, very simple, foot water on the head. Who's supreme? Who's taking the foot water on whose head? Vishnu's foot water is on Shiva's head. Simple. Vishnu's supreme, Shiva's not. Okay, simple thing. But here, the point here being made, and it'll be made also again in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Maybe I'm not sure if we already did that sloka, but there's a sloka in there that says that the devotees of Vishnu should also respect Shiva, and the devotees of Shiva should also respect Vishnu. So this is sort of like that sloka. He's saying that Lord Shiva is saying, if you really think that you're a devotee of mine, you should also offer obeisances to Lord Vishnu. So whether they accept that or not, there are some hardcore people who don't. There are some hardcore Shaivas who don't. The smartas, usually the people who are smartas, they worship all the different devatas. They accept it, and they offer obeisances to Vishnu. They offer obeisances to Shiva. They worship everybody. So anyway, I just think it's a good pramana. It's a good pramana to talk to people who are fanatic Shaivites. Yeah, I went to a Shiva temple in Trichinopali with some friends of mine. We were sightseeing. We went up the top of the temple of this temple called the Rock Fort to see the view of Sri Rangam, which is an island in the middle of Kaveri. So from the top of the rock, you can see, it's a beautiful view. So then on the way down, halfway down the steps, there's about 300 steps. So there's a Shiva temple, which is a big Shiva temple. It's the second biggest lingam in India, next to Tanjore. And so I said, look, we're sightseeing. Do you want to go in Shiva temple and see the sights inside? So we went inside, and there were all these different deities, and they had nameplates for all the deities in Tamil. So I was translating the Tamil nameplates. So we saw a deity of Surya. So it said Suryan. So I said, oh, I was saying this is this. When I came to that one, I said, this is Surya. Then I said Surya Narayana. So there was a very hardcore Shaivite priest there. And he said, no, don't say Surya Narayana, only Surya. Don't say Surya Narayana. Don't say Narayana, only Surya. So for him, that Devata is Surya. He's the god of the sun. He's got nothing to do with Narayana. They don't accept it, that even though in the Shastras, it clearly says that Surya Narayana, that Narayana is a form of, Surya is a form of Narayana in the sun. So they have their own biases because of what they believe. But it's not borne out by scripture. Scripture says something different. So when we meet people like that, we can either say, okay, you have your opinion, we have our opinion, or we can say to them, we can give them a very simple story, like the foot water on the head, or we can give them some actual shastric pramanas and say, look, in this scripture, which is accepted also by you, it says that Narayana is Surya Narayana. You have to accept it. Yeah, so there's different ways of preaching to people, and you have to see whether they're receptive or not to that argument. But we should know the scriptures, and we should know what the scriptures say about all the different devatas, and we should know how to show that Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna is supreme. We should know, as Vaishnavas, we should be able to defend our position that Vishnoya Paramam Padam, Vishnu is in the highest place. That's in the Veda. You can't deny the Veda. Who's going to deny the Rig Veda, right? It's the greatest pramana, the Veda. So Vishnoya Paramam Param, Vishnu is in the supreme place. So anybody else who says something else, they can quote whatever they like, but we have better quotes, better pramanas, higher scriptures than others, and that's why we should know these things, especially if we're going to discuss with other people. We need to know what their opinions are, what their scriptures say, and we need to know why their scriptures are not fully true. In other words, there's certain truth, there's some truth in all these scriptures. There's some truth, right? Shiva is a great personality, no doubt. All glories to Shiva. Shiva is a great Vaishnava. Is Shiva God? Is Shiva the supreme? Is he greater than Vishnu? No, that we can't accept. That we know from the greatest scriptural authorities, right? We know that is not correct. So we just point that out. Do we disregard Shiva? Do we not honor Shiva? No, we honor him. No, he's a great Vaishnava, no problem. But we know everybody's place has a place, and Shiva has his place, but his place is not at the top. His place is below the top. Vishnu is at the top. Krishna is at the top. So there are different ways that we can discuss, these arguments. But Shiva himself says here, if they don't pay obeisances to Vishnu, they're not really my devotees. I don't consider them really my devotees. So we can quote that to if some fanatic Shaivite comes up, and I'll just tell him that, hey, this is what it says in Skanda Purana. If you don't accept Skanda Puranas, hey, that's your business. But it's in scripture. It says it. So text 394, my dear son, I always reside in the Shalom Sheila, being pleased by my devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has awarded me his residence. My dear son, okay, this seems to be Shiva saying to his son, I always reside in the Shalom Sheila, being pleased by my devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has awarded me his residence. So it seems like what Shiva's saying here, this is very interesting. Seems like what Shiva's saying is that I also can reside in, just like there are devotees of the Lord in Vaikuntha. So just like that, I'm a devotee of Lord Vishnu, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, Lord Vasudeva, is awarding me also to be close to him, his residence in the Shalom Sheila. Well, that's what it says. Swastanam. Ama Bhakti Taha. That's very interesting. Want to bring that up? You want to bring that up in a conversation with some people, with other devotees, and see what they think about that. That Shiva says that he is also, along with Lakshmi. Whenever we see the Lord, we never see the Lord alone. The Lord is always surrounded by his devotees. So, is it a surprise that if the devotees of the Lord are also considered as being part of that? No, it's not a surprise to me. Anyway, continuing on with 395, 396. The result one achieves by worshipping me with thousands of millions of lotus flowers is multiplied 10 million times. Thousands of millions of lotus flowers multiplied 10 million times. That's a lot of result. That's a lot of fruit from when he worships the Shalom Sheila. So just worshipping the Shalom Sheila is equal to offering these billions of lotus flowers. I feel embarrassed to accept the adoration offered to me by those who worship the Shalom Sheila. It's unclear here if this is still Shiva speaking, or if this is not. We need to, I think it's important. We should probably go in Skanda Purana and find this section, and we should see if somebody else isn't saying this. So it seems it's interesting. Okay, so text 397. A person who worships me in front of the Shalom Sheila gets the benefit of worshiping me continuously for 71 yugas. This sounds like something that Vishnu would say. So it seems like we've changed speaker here. So that's why I think we need to go to Skanda Purana and check that out. So because this, I mean, it wouldn't make sense if Shiva was saying the person who worships me. Well, maybe. Shiva's saying a person who worships me in front of Shalom Sheila gets the benefit of worshiping me continuously for 71 yugas. So if you want to worship Shiva, even if you want to worship Shiva, if you worship him in front of Shalom, it's beneficial. That's the meaning which is coming out here. So we have to look in Skanda Purana and see who's speaking this. But if it's still Shiva speaking this, then this is the meaning. So text 398. O child, once again, we have O child. O child would indicate that, that Lord Shiva is speaking to Kartikeya. Yes. Those who do not worship the Shalom Sheila are devoid of devotional service to Vishnu. Yes. Well, that's heavy. So in other words, you can worship all other forms of Vishnu, but if you don't worship the Shalom Sheila, he's saying here, you don't really have any devotion. Shiva's saying that. As such, they receive no benefit even after worshipping 100 Shiva lingas. So there are people who think that they're worshipping Lord Vishnu by worshipping other forms, but unless they worship Shalom, that's what he's saying here, they don't get any benefit. And even if they worship some other form of Godhead, or they feel that the Shiva is in the lingam that they're worshipping is enough, it's not. Text 399, things that have been contaminated, such as food, water, flowers, leaves, and fruit, and are thus unfit for offering to me, can be sanctified by the touch of Shalom Sheila. Okay, is this an amazing sloka? We're coming across some really amazing slokas here today, right? So you've got things which are unedible, right? They're unfit to be offered. Unfit food, unfit water, unfit flowers, unfit leaves, unfit fruits, right? They're contaminated. These things are contaminated in some way. There's different ways that things can be contaminated. There are sections in Hari Bhakti Vilasa about things which are contaminated. We'll come to it. There are things that are contaminated and how to make those contaminated things pure. But here, what it's saying is, it's just giving a blanket instruction here. If any of these type of things are contaminated, and it doesn't say in what way, but in any way, they can be made fit, right? They can be sanctified. They are unfit. Originally, these things are unfit to be offered, but just touch the Shalom Sheila to them, and they become sanctified. That is an amazing sloka. Okay, so text 400. If a devotee of Lord Shiva displays envy or hatred towards the deity of Sri Hari, he will have to reside in hell for a period equal to the rule of 14 Indras. A long time. There is no doubt, text 401, there is no doubt that even those who have no knowledge of the absolute truth, if they worship Shalom Sheila even once, they become eligible for liberation. Text 402. The result achieved by having the darshan of or worshipping 10 million Shiva lingams can be achieved simply by worshipping Shalom Sheila, meaning one Shalom Sheila. So really, you can't compare. You cannot compare the worship of other deities to the worship of Krishna or the worship of Vishnu. You cannot compare even the worship of millions and millions of Shiva lingams to the worship of Shalom Sheila. Shalom Sheila's worship is so much greater. It's so much more beneficial, so much more spiritually uplifting than the worship of Shiva lingas. Any number of Shiva lingas. Text 403, my son. It seems to be still going on. It seems to be still Shiva is saying this to Kartikeya. All these amazing statements Shiva is making here in Skanda Purana. I definitely, after this, I'm going to look this up. I'm going to investigate this. I really, really am amazed at these, when Gopal Bhatta says this is a Mahatmyam, I'm going to praise the Shalom Sheila. I didn't realize, until I read this again. I've read it before, but I hadn't gone through it deeply enough to understand how incredible these statements are. These are incredible statements about Shalom. Incredible. Look, my son, therefore, for my pleasure, my devotees should regularly worship Shalom Sheila with love and devotion. So even Lord Shiva is recommending the worship of Shalom, of Vishnu Shalom, of Krishna Shalom, right, with love and devotion for Vishnu and Krishna to his Shaivite devotees. I just wonder if you read this to some Shaivites, what they would say. They'd probably choke up. What can they say? Lord Shiva himself is saying this. Text 404. Demigods, devatas, asuras, and yakshas, as well as the entire 14 worlds, are present where Lord Keshava, in the form of Shalom Sheila, is worshipped. Text 405 and 406. It is impossible to estimate how much happiness the forefathers experience when they're offered oblations, right? Or pinda, or shraddhas, or whatever it is you offer to the forefathers, depending on the ceremony, even once in front of Shalom Sheila. So they get unlimited happiness, the forefathers, if Shalom Sheila is used in the Shraddha ceremonies. There is actually no mention of different samskaras in Hari Bhakti Vilas. We have to look at different books if we want to talk about individual people's samskaras, because Hari Bhakti Vilas is all about the worship of Vishnu and the worship of God. And the samskaras are of course, they're about the worship of God and the worship of different devatas, but they're only peripherally. They're not exactly directly connected with the worship of God. They're more for the purification of the family and the purification of the self, right? They are purificatory ceremonies, and therefore, since they don't specifically or directly worship God, it's not dealt with. But here we find instructions about Shraddha, about how to make the Shraddha ceremony better. There is actually one verse about Vaishnava Shraddha in Hari Bhakti Vilas, and we'll come across that. But it's not in this section, so we'll leave it until we get there to have more discussion about samskaras and how the Shraddha, there are different samskaras. There are what we call Purva Prayoga and Apara Prayoga. There are the samskaras that come before death and the samskaras that come after death. After death comes birth, of course. But here, when we say Apara, we mean after death and before birth. And when we say Purva, we mean before death and after birth. So from birth, well, and also before birth too, between conception and death, So there are these two sections of samskaras, and they're not treated in Hari Bhakti Vilas, except for a small mention about Shraddha. So we do have some mentions of Shraddha and Vaishnava Shraddha there, and the difference between Vaishnava Shraddha and the ordinary Shraddha that is done by Smartas or Shaivas, because they also do Shraddha, they also worship the ancestors, but they don't consider the worship of Shalom Sheila to be an integral part. Whereas here we see the Vaishnavas consider the worship of Shalom to be an integral part in the worship of the forefathers, because the forefathers get so much happiness from taking Vishnu Prasadam or Krishna Prasadam and being worshipped along, having their Shraddha being performed, which includes the worship of Shalom Sheila. If we see, for instance, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a section where Lord Chaitanya goes to Srivasa's house, and Srivasa is performing a Shraddha for his parents. And in that Shraddha ceremony, they're chanting the 1,000 names of Vishnu, the Vishnu Sahasranama. And when they come to the third verse of Vishnu Sahasranama, they say, Sarva Sarva Shivastano, no, excuse me, Yogo Yoga Vidanneta, Pradana Purusheshwaraha, Narasimha Bapu Shriman, Keshava Purushottamaha. So when he hears the word Narasimha, Lord Chaitanya immediately jumps up and runs out into the street, and he's in the ecstasy of Lord Narasimha. You read this story, read this pastime of Lord Chaitanya in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But it is at a Shraddha ceremony. A Shraddha ceremony, normally people don't think of the Shraddha ceremony has anything to do with, much to do with Vishnu. But here, we have to worship the forefathers. But the worship of Vishnu is integral to the Shraddha ceremony. So the chanting of Vishnu Sahasranama, the worship of Shalagram, the offering of the food to Shalagram, before the pinda, before the rice balls are offered to the forefathers. These are all things that are done. And in fact, when you do a Shraddha, just to digress a little bit, when you do a proper full Shraddha, right, we invite Brahmins, and we invite one Brahmin to come and to eat on behalf of Vishnu, and another Brahmin to come and eat on behalf of the Vaishnavas, and another Brahmin to come and eat on behalf of the Hitris, the forefathers. So this is the system. This is the system, but we'll talk about it in different class because we're not talking about samskaras or shraddhas here. So continuing on with Shiva's amazing glorification of the Shalagram Sheila, all kinds of piety have a limit, my son, right? O Kartikeya. No one can estimate the fruit or the limit to the greatness of the worshiping, the result from worshiping the Shalagram Sheila. Nobody can even estimate it. It's so great. Nobody can even estimate the fruit, the result. It's so great. So text 407. One who gives the Shalagram Sheila in charity to a qualified Brahmana who is engaged in devotional service of Lord Vishnu attains the result of performing many sacrifices. So it's also a good thing to give Shalagrams in charity. A lot of times people come to me and they say, I've got a Shalagram, or I'm not worshiping, or I came back from Nepal and I bought a Shalagram and I don't really want to worship it, or I have this, I don't have time to worship it anymore. I said, okay, that's all, give it to me, like that. So I get it. So they get benefit from giving it to me. Even if I don't want to worship it as part of my Shalagram routine like that, I have a box and I keep some Shalagrams in a box. And devotees say, some devotee writes to me and says, I really wish I could worship Shalagram or something like that. I'd like to worship Shalagram. And I say, okay, I've got a box. Choose whichever one you want. I'll send it to you and give it to them. And I also get benefit from giving them, and they get benefit from receiving it. And everybody wins in this scenario. So if anybody has a Shalagram out there, if you're listening and you don't want to worship it, or you don't have time to worship it, or for some reason the worship has stopped or had been neglected or something like that, contact me with the email at the end of the video, and I will arrange for a nice person, a nice devoted Vaishnava to worship that Shalagram. We can definitely do that. So I've found homes for many Shalagrams. I'm very proud of that, and it is a type of charity which gives unlimited result. It's very nice like that. So I think we're going to mention also that you shouldn't buy and sell Shalagrams. So that's going to come up. That'll come up. Coming up in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Text 408. Shalagram Sheilas are very rarely seen in this world unless one is very fortunate or pious. One cannot, and they're rare. Shalagrams are rare. In fact, the further you get away from the Himalayas, if there are people selling Shalagrams, the more expensive they are. If you try to buy a Shalagram on the internet, it's going to be very expensive. If you want to buy one in South India, it's going to be less expensive, but still very expensive. If you go to northern India, it's going to be expensive, but it's not going to be as expensive if you go to Nepal, or if you're actually in the Gandaki region in Nepal. Obviously, you can just pick up a stone and it's Shalagram, so it's not expensive at all. So the people who are selling Shalagram know this. So there are more or less prices on Shalagrams so it's the saying here. Shalagram Sheilas are rare. They're rare. They're very rare. They only come from one particular place in Nepal, one particular river and region. And what to speak of having these different markings, if you want to find one with specific type of marking, they're rare. They're once-only deities. They're not mass-produced. They're self-manifest forms of Vishnu, which are very rare. So the Shalagram Sheila is rare. Unless one is very fortunate or pious, he cannot possess a Shalagram Sheila, especially in this age of Kali. So here is a pramana. If anybody has a Shalagram Sheila, I know that person is pious. Somehow or other, that person has performed some pious activities. Maybe in this life, it doesn't look like it, but in previous life, he has performed some pious activities in order the fact that he has a Shalagram, even that he has a Shalagram. What to speak of worshipping that Shalagram? This is the proof. They're so rare, Shalagrams. Text 409. In this world, that person is certainly glorious and his life is surely successful, in whose house the Shalagram Sheila is being worshipped. So here's another text which is trying to encourage people to worship Shalagram, not only in the temple, but also in the house, even in the house. And Shalagram is so small, like I said, it's very easy to worship actually. So it's not a hard thing. Compared to some other forms of deities and some other forms of worship, Shalagram Sheila worship is quite... if you want to see the most complicated form of worship, the most complicated form of worship is the worship of the Sri Yantra or the Sri Meru, right? This is the most complicated. And if you want to see the most simple form of worship, we can talk about the Shalagram Sheila worship with just water and tulsi in some cases. So it's very, very simple worship, very easy. And yet gives so much more result than these other forms of worship. Text 410. By worshipping Shalagram Sheila with offering of flowers, a devotee with a controlled mind attains the result of performing a horse sacrifice at each of his flower offerings. So when you're in South India, when we're offering flowers with all the different names, imagine we have 108 or 1,008 names and we're offering flowers to the deity. This is called Archan in South India. So we're offering one flower. Each flower we offer is equal to a horse sacrifice. Lord Indra became the king of heaven by doing 100 horse sacrifices. If we offer 100 flowers to the deity, then we are doing the same as what Lord Indra did to become Indra, the head of heaven, right? So every time we do Narasimha or Vishnu or Krishna, Astatara Sadhanama, the 108 names of Narasimha, when we get to the end, we've done more than Indra. That's the greatness of what we're doing. So especially with Shalagram Sheila, right here, that's what it's saying. Every flower that you offer is like a horse sacrifice. Okay, so text 411. Whether at a proper time or an improper time, whether with devotion or without devotion, if a person simply worships Shalagram Sheila, he achieves piety. He gets punya. He gets a spiritual result, a good spiritual result. So this is great. This is a really nice, another really nice pramana. This section is full of wonderful pramana. Kaleva, the word va means or. So kaleva means in time, in a proper time, or yadi va'akale, or at the wrong time. There's kale and akale, at the right time or the wrong time. Right? Very good, very good. Then it says on the third line, bhaktyava, with devotion, with bhakti, or va'abhaktya, if he's got abhaktya. Abhaktya means anti-devotion, like no devotion. It's not just no devotion. Abhaktya means against devotion even, right? So he gets punya bhak. He receives punya. He gets punya by worshipping the Shalagram Sheila. And then he has no devotion, or he has devotion, or he did it in the right time, he did it in the wrong time, doesn't matter. He will get a great spiritual result. 412. Simply by having darshan of the Shalagram Sheila, even if out of greed, envy, pride, duplicity, or any other such motive, a person becomes freed from all sinful reactions. 413. Whether one is pure or sinful, whether one is truthful or ill-behaved, simply by touching the Shalom Sheila, he at once becomes purified. Now, this is very interesting because normally we think we should try to become pure before we touch the deity, right? Except there's one state in India where they think the other way around. They think like this. In the state of Orissa, they have this idea that more or less they really push this idea that because when you go to the Jagannath temple, right, they actually allow you to touch the deity. I've seen it also in Maharashtra, in Pandharpur. They take you inside and they make you touch the feet of the deity. Even you just came from outside, you didn't wash your hands, you just, they just take you in there and you please touch the deity. And the priest will say to you, oh, no, but by touching the deity, because he's the supreme and he's all pure, you'll become pure by touch. So in the Vedic civilization, we understand that both contamination and purification are by touch. And by mantra also we can do this. But very, very often we understand there are rules. The rules of contamination and purification have to do with touch. If a pure thing touches an impure thing, it becomes impure. If an impure thing touches a pure thing, it somehow becomes pure. Sounds contradictory, doesn't it? So what we have to see is which thing is more powerful. If the impure thing is more powerful, then when the pure thing touches, it'll become contaminated. If the pure thing is more powerful, when it touches an impure thing, the impure thing will become purified. Does that make sense? Right? So it may sound contradictory that we have a pure and impure thing coming together. In one case, the pure thing becomes contaminated. In another case, the impure thing becomes pure by the touch. So what is the difference? The difference is that if a thing is more powerful than the other thing, then it contaminates the other thing, either purifies it or contaminates it. So the Shalom Sheila is so powerful, is so purifying, is so pure, that if it touches anything, it purifies anything. It can purify anything, whether one is sinful, pure or sinful, right? Whether one is ill-behaved or truthful, simply by touching Shalom Sheila, he becomes purified. The person himself becomes purified. So normally in deity worship, we say, no, you have to become pure. Go take a bath, put on pure clothes, do archamana, right? And then sit and do meditation, do pranayama, right? And sit and do meditation, do Buddha Shuddhi, and purify your body before you go and worship the deity of Vishnu. That's what we say. We teach people this. This is what we teach. This is what the whole Hari Bhakti Vilasa up until now has said. And this sloka, this one sloka, goes against everything that we just learned in the 5th chapter, which says that we have to do this and this and this before we worship Krishna. Here it's saying, just by touching the Shalom Sheila, we become purified. Right. So this is a mahatmya. It's spiritual hyperbole. It's to encourage people to do Shalom worship because they'll get so much benefit. They'll be purified so much. Now, should we go and do this? Should we therefore take advantage of the nature of Shalom or any deity of the Lord as being so pure that we should therefore think in our contaminated state we should touch the Lord and he'll make us contaminated? Oh, I don't want to take a bath or put on clean clothes or do archamana or do pranayama or sit in meditation and do Buddha Shuddhi. I'm just going to immediately go and worship the Lord and touch him. No, because the scriptures say we should do all those things. The Hari Bhakti Vilasa says we should do all those things, right? And the Agama Shastras, the Pancharatra Agama, the Vaikhanasa Agama, all the Agama Shastras say that we should do those preliminary things as ways to try to purify ourselves. But ultimately, we're impure. We're here in this material world, right? The soul, of course, our soul is pure, but we're covered by so many impure things, right? So ultimately, we are impure. And we ultimately do become purified by touching the Lord. So we shouldn't think we can give up all these other activities of becoming pure first, trying to become pure first before touching the Lord. But at the same time, we should also meditate that when we do touch the Lord, that is the perfection of our purity routine. So we can take a bath, we can put on fresh clothes, we can put on tilak, we can say archaman, we can do pranayama, we can sit for meditation in Buddha Shuddhi, and do all these things to purify ourselves. But ultimately, when we actually touch the Lord, when we touch the deity, we touch the Shalom Sheila, he makes us pure. He makes us completely pure by that touch, because he's completely pure. So when we come into direct contact with him, either in his deity form, in his holy name, right? And somehow we come in contact with the Lord, immediately we become more purified than all these other things that we did. So that's why the Gaudiya Acharyas will say, by chanting the holy name, one becomes pure. So why? So, okay, so that doesn't mean Gaudiyas don't take bath, wear fresh clothes, wear tilak, do achaman, do pranayam, do Buddha Shuddhi. That doesn't mean that we don't do those things. We do them, right? But what is the ultimate thing? The ultimate thing is to come in contact with the Lord through Harinam and through touching the deity. So we can also note that during pranayam and achamana, we chant the holy names of the Lord. We chant holy mantras and holy names of the Lord. Keshava Namaha, Narayana Namaha, Madhava. What's that? That's the holy name of the Lord. Keshava Narayana Madhava. We chant, right? When we do the pranayam, when we chant, maybe we might do Klim Bij pranayam, right? And Klim, 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 we think of Klim, like that. We're becoming purified because of the Klim. We're coming in contact with the Lord in the form of the Bija mantra, the Kama Dev Bij, the Kama Bij, the Kama Bija. Or doing even ordinary pranayam, the Gayatri mantra is used. The Dirgha Gayatri mantra is used. So we're coming in contact with the Lord, Surya Narayana, through that Dirgha Gayatri mantra. And we're becoming purified. So that is contamination, and that is purification. Coming in contact with something which is more contaminating than us will contaminate us. Coming in contact with something which is more pure than us, and what could be more pure than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna? He's the most pure. So coming in contact with him in the form of Shalom Sheila or in the form of some other deity of Vishnu or Krishna, that is the most purifying, and that will purify us. So this is absolutely wonderful when we understand this. Text 414 to 416. Let's continue on, right? The result of one obtains by devotedly giving a fixed quantity of sesame seeds in charity every day can be achieved simply by worshiping the Shalom Sheila. So some of these pramanas are more amazing than others. This one I think is a little less amazing. So somebody's made a vow to offer a certain number of sesame seeds, which are an expensive item, right? Offered to brahmanas or to Vaishnavas or to needy people in charity, and it's equal to the worship of Shalom Sheila. Of course, we've just heard that the worship of Shalom is much greater than that, but here he's giving that example as well. Another example. My dear son, and this is again Shiva, must be Shiva. So all of this is a Mahatmya coming from Skanda Purana by Lord Shiva. Even a small quantity of leaves, flowers, fruit, water, roots, darba grass means kusha grass, or rice paddy, right? Rice which is unhusked, which has got the husk on it, offered to the Shalom Sheila, is accepted as being as big as Mount Sumeru, which is the biggest mountain in the universe, right? So even a small amount of this is equal to the biggest mountain of it, right, being offered by worshipping the Shalom Sheila, even those who are unfamiliar with the prescribed rules and regulations. Even if you don't know how to worship him properly, right, just worship him, right? I knew one person, he said, I do a very simple Shalom puja. I have a glass of milk, I put the Shalom in the glass of milk, I stir it, I take the Shalom out, I drink the milk. There was one guy who told me that. That's how he worships Shalom. I said, well, that's not exactly the way in the scriptures it says to do it. But, you'll see people have all these different ways, and some of them are scriptural and some of them are not. But here it's saying, even if you don't follow the rules and regulations, the proper method of doing it, or who know nothing of the prescribed rituals and mantras. Some people say, oh, I would like to worship Shalom, but I don't know all the rules and regulations. I don't know the prescribed rituals. I don't know the mantras. I don't know Purusha Sukta. I mean, I say, all right, if you're going to worship Shalom, you should try to learn Purusha Sukta. You should try to do it like this. And people go, no, that's too hard. I don't know how to do that. Or somebody says, I really want to worship Shalom, but I don't know how to do it. I don't want to, I can't learn all these things. I can't remember all these mantras. So here he's saying, Lord Shiva is saying this. And he's the greatest Vaishnava, remember that. So his advice to his son is saying, even if they don't know any of these rules and regulations, even if they know nothing about the rituals and the mantras, They can achieve the benefit as stated in the revealed scriptures. They can achieve the benefit as stated in the revealed scriptures, and there's lots of benefit that we just mentioned about. Okay, so now I think we're finished with the Mahatmyam by Lord Shiva to Kartikeya, the discussion in Skanda Purana. So texts 417 to 419, it says Tatraiva Chanyatra, which means in the same literature it is stated. So again, it's in the same literature, Skanda Purana. We don't know if it's exactly the same in the same context. It would be useful to go and look this up in Skanda Purana and see if it's somehow attached. There's a few verses left out or whatever it is, or if it comes in a completely separate part of the Skanda Purana. That will be interesting too. And so here's what he says. Here's what it says here. One who travels carrying a Shalom Sheila on his shoulder is considered to be carrying the entire three worlds, along with all moving and non-moving living entities. If those who are guilty of killing a Brahmana or committing other grave sins worships the Shalom Sheila, they will quickly be relieved of all sinful reactions. And I wanted to mention here, just in the last sloka, which is something that I thought of before that I was going to say. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says a very similar thing. He says, Patram pushpam palam toyam, yomai bhakti pranashiti, tadaham bhakti upahritam, ashtami praitat panaha. That in the 9th chapter he says, I think 932, he says that if you offer to me with love and devotion fruit, a flower, a leaf, and some water, I'll accept it with love and devotion. Right? So the idea is, even if we offer just a small quantity of these things, fruits, flowers, leaves, water, roots, kusha grass, darba, rice paddy, etc., then Krishna will accept this as a great offering. Krishna wants our love and devotion. He wants us to worship him. So that's confirmed from Bhagavad Gita. So continuing on here, one who travels and carrying a Shalom Sheila on his shoulder is considered to be carrying the entire three worlds along with all moving and non-moving living entities. If one who is guilty of killing a Brahmana or committing other grave sins worships Shalom Sheila, they will quickly be relieved of all sinful reactions. So for murderers, it's to get rid of sinful reactions. One should not be overly concerned with the process of worship, chanting the mantras, meditation, the offering of prayers, or the ingredients for worship while worshiping the Shalom Sheila. So here again, it's saying that the worship of Shalom is easy. The worship of Shalom is easy because why? Because unlike some other forms of the Lord, where you have to be very strict about the procedure, about the mantras, about the meditation, about the prayers, about the ingredients that are offered, the worship of Shalom can be done in a minimal way, without so many of these things, or without being so strict about these other things, right? And it can be effective. It'll be effective. So Shalom is like the mercy incarnation of the Lord, that you can worship him and even make a whole lot of mistakes, not even know anything about the worship, not have the proper ingredients, not chant the proper mantras, right, etc. And you still will get wonderful result, the result which is explained in the scriptures. 420 to 422. An area of 24 miles, once again, we probably see here Yojana. This is here now. This is shown also it's a Bengali manuscript, so they sometimes J and Y are changed, interchangeable in Bengali manuscripts. So Yojana, Yojanaya Traya. So Yojanaya Trayam means 3 yojanas or 24 miles, 3 times 8. Around the place where the Shalom Sheila is worshipped, becomes transformed into a holy tirtha. As such, all pious activities, including the giving of charity, the chanting of mantras, the performance of fire sacrifices that are executed in this area, yield 10 million times greater results. Right? So we heard this before also, right? 10 million times greater results if you do something pious around a Shalom. Like that. Now, so far we're not seeing any downside to this. We're not saying if you do some sinful thing around Shalom that you're going to get 10,000 times greater sins also. So we're not seeing that. We're just seeing there's no downside to this. It's all upside here. It's all good. seems to be so far. A person who performs the Shraddha ceremony to the forefathers by worshipping the Shalom Sheila ensures that the forefathers joyfully live in the planets of the demigods for 100 kalpas. So this was also mentioned before. And we also have the same mantra. Well, it's interesting. We should look this up. It looks like the same exact slokas that come again. Yeah? I will check this out later on. Whether this is a mistake or not, we don't know. But it would be interesting if Gopal Bhatta quoted the same verses twice in the same section. That would be very interesting. This may be a question for Brigapada, who is a scholar, a devotee in Finland, who is making a critical edition of Hari Bhakti Vilas. So ask him whether in the critical edition of Hari Bhakti Vilas that these same slokas are in two places, one very quickly after the other in the same section. So again, if a fallen person who was born in the Kirata Desha, remember we talked about the Kirata Desha, the only Aryans living, non-Aryans living in the Kirata Desha, whatever that means, according to the culture, Vaishnava culture, or Vishnu, Hindu culture, gives up his material body within 2 miles of the place of the Shalom Sheila is being worshipped, he attains Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual sky. Okay, so we understood that before. Do you have any questions or comments about this Mahatmyam? I mean, Mahatmyams, you're going to hear these Mahatmyams throughout Hari Bhakti Vilas. A lot of Hari Bhakti Vilas is Mahatmyams, right? It's glorification of different things. So it may sound over the top. It may sound too much, that it says this. It's just, it's unbelievable how great the benefit is from doing a certain thing. And it's also unbelievable if I don't do this thing, how much sin I'll incur, right? I'll be damned to hell if I don't do this thing. So forever, So it may seem like hyperbole. It may seem like too much, but this is the meaning of the term Mahatmyam. It means glorification. So these particular verses in Sanskrit in the scriptures are meant to encourage people to do the right thing, to do the right thing, and not to do the wrong things. So they're encouragement. We should take them as encouragement. Whether you take these verses literally or don't take them literally, you have to accept them as what they are. They're Mahatmyams. They're meant to encourage us to do good things and to not do bad things. So that is the purpose of them. So we should not lose sight of the fact and just say, well, this just who can believe this stuff? Let's just not read it. No, we should read it because it has a purpose. It has a purpose. Whether you accept them, as being literal or not, literally correct or not. Of course, we're not interested in some of these things. We're not interested in getting the benefit of a horse sacrifice. Who cares about a horse sacrifice? We're just interested in worshiping the Lord with love and devotion. So we don't need. Many people don't need this, but some people they do. Some people apparently they need some encouragement. And they get encouraged, because the teacher sits and he tells them what great spiritual benefits there are from doing their ordinary daily sadhana or whatever it is, or just by touching shalagram without knowing the mantras properly. It's an encouragement. In teaching, it's a method also. It's a method in teaching. You tell, somebody is trying to learn something and you're teaching them something and you say to them, oh, you're telling them you did very good, but you made this one mistake. So first of all, you praise them and you tell them you did really well. That was a very good attempt at chanting that mantra or whatever it is like that. Oh, but you could change this. If you did this, it would be better. If you just did this, it would be better. And then again, after you tell them, right? There's a word for this which I won't say, but this method of teaching, and again, you encourage them at the end of chastising them a little bit and try to correct them. You again tell them how what you've done is really good. So like that. So this is very important, especially if you want to be a teacher, if you want to teach people, and I think all gurus should learn this technique, right? You should try to find the good in what the student has done, or in the student's attempt, right? Even if their attempt is somewhat hopeless in the beginning, right? You find some good thing and praise that. Then tell them where they went wrong a little bit and try to correct them to a certain extent. Maybe you can't correct them immediately for everything. You just correct the major mistakes. And then again, praise them like that. And in that way, see, I've seen so many teachers. They just all the time just wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You got it wrong. Do it again. You chant it again. You did it wrong. Like that. If it's like that, then some people get very discouraged after a while. Like that. So we have to enthuse people. We have to try to get people to take the spiritual life, right? And the way to do that is to encourage them. That was Prabhupada's system. Prabhupada's system was to encourage people, chanting, dancing, feasting. What could be more, wonderful, like that. So he introduced that system. It's a system which is used by successful teachers. Successful teachers, they know how to get. You will never learn anything unless you are interested in that thing, unless you are enthused and you want to learn that thing. You can never learn something which you are forced to learn. It's very difficult to force people against their will to learn something like that. If you make it fun, if you make it good for them, if you enthuse them to do it, that's important. So this is the we've come across a few Mahatmyas like this before. And as we go through Hari Bhakti Vilas, you're going to find the majority, the major parts of Hari Bhakti Vilas are these Mahatmyas coming from different Puranas, which glorify different spiritual activities. And also, they also tell us all the bad, negative results from not doing those things or from doing the opposite of those things. So it's a very important aspect of learning, is enthusing the student like that. The teachers are from going back all the way thousands of years to Panini, who was teaching Sanskrit grammar. They're always looking for good students who are interested in the subject. Most students, even if you go to school, most of the people they're just not interested in learning like that. If you find a person who's interested in learning, you should try to encourage that person. And this is the Vedic way in the Shastras, the Shastric way to try to enthuse people, and with Mahatmyas, and also with tempered with also telling people if they don't do a particular thing, it's also not good. So good and bad, mixture of good and bad. What do we call it in English? We call it the carrot and the stick. If you have a donkey and you're trying to get the donkey to move, and the donkey's very stubborn, put a carrot in front of the donkey. And the donkey goes, oh, he wants to eat the carrot, so he moves, right? You also have a stick. You're going to whack the donkey on the tail to get the donkey to move a little bit. So carrot and stick. So this is the system, offering some encouragement and or through the giving of these Mahatmyas. I'm very, very enthused. Okay, I read this Mahatmyam with you today, and I'm very, very excited by reading it. It makes me feel very happy that after this, I'm going to go take bath and worship Shalom. I'm going to be very happy doing that. So I'm going to be thinking about that all through my puja today. So I'm so happy that I read it. And I'm amazed also because I'd read it before, and I hadn't read it in such depth and looked at it. We can go into even more depth. I wonder what Sanatana Goswami is saying in the purports about this in his commentary. These are amazing statements by Shiva to Kartikeya. I'm just blown away. I am really, really blown away by this particular Mahatmyam. It's amazing. So thank you very much, and we'll continue on. We're definitely going to finish the fifth Vilas next time.
Thank you, Swami.
Namaskaram. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.